Today on the program, is gender dysphoria, the original form of transgenderism, a disability now? Does that mean, if it is, that it comes with legal protections associated with having a disability? At least one court says yes. We'll tell you about that story today. Also, polling has been bad for President Biden for months, and everyone has expected Republicans to have massive victories this November. However, now that Roe v. Wade has been repealed, Democrats are hopeful the abortion issue will save them politically. Is that true? We'll have that conversation as well today. Also, the student loan bailout has been announced. Dr. Dave Bratt from Liberty University will join us to talk about the economics of student loan forgiveness, and he'll give us a response to several of the arguments we've heard from the White House over the last 24 hours. What can we believe and what should we be skeptical of? We'll talk to him about that today. But our headline today, as I just mentioned, President Biden's announcement yesterday that he plans for taxpayers to pick up the tab for student loan debt has Republicans on the Hill calling his naked bid for buying votes a, quote, slap in the face. The most potent criticism of the bailout is that it is explicitly illegal. Many also wonder why blue-collar workers are footing the bill to subsidize graduate degrees. With just over 2 months until the midterm elections, what can we expect looking forward, and how critical is it for conservatives to get out and vote this fall? Joining me now to discuss this is U.S. Representative Kevin Hern, who's a member of the House Committee on Ways and Means and serves as chair of the Republican Study Committee's Budget and Spending Task Force. He represents Oklahoma's 1st Congressional District. Congressman Hern, good to see you today.
Great to be with you, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
Now, we've had about 24 hours to learn and react. What's your reaction to the president's student loan bailout plan?
Well, this president and the Socialist Democrats in Congress have been working ever since Joe Biden got in office last year to buy votes, knowing that what they were doing will be their last chance for many years to come. You know, when you see what he's done so far, and the latest being today with the forgiving or doing something completely illegal, pushing a socialist agenda of forgiving student loans, which, by the way, is the second largest debt in America behind mortgages. You know, you think about the farmers and ranchers in Oklahoma, and they're out there working hard every day, the people working in the manufacturers, facilities around the country. And now they're being told that upwards of $2,000 per person to fund this bailout of student loans. And like everything the Democrats have done, they've done nothing to fix the underlying problem of extraordinarily high and rising college tuition across America. And then this is just one thing more that this president has done, which, by the way, Speaker Pelosi said last year in July of 21 that he didn't have the authorities to do so. So we're going to see if she stands behind those words as we move forward.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to get to with you. First, you mentioned the legal basis of this, or the lack of a legal basis. What authority is the White House claiming they have to do this at all?
Well, they have the authority to delay or defer, but not to forgive. And they're using the Health Emergency Act that was done under COVID, by the way, and the same one that they've completely set aside to get rid of Title 42 at the border. And it's just they're picking and choosing where they want this public health emergency to exist. It only exists on the floor of the House of Representatives, not on the other end of the Capitol in the Senate, where they've not been masked or not have to do anything as far as social distancing since the COVID pandemic happened back in 2020. Speaker Pelosi is using it to allow Democrats to stay at home and proxy vote, that will end when Democrats lose control of the House in December and we take over in January. You will have to be in person, do your job, work for the American people. And what they're using this pandemic for today is to pick and choose the emergencies they want to call and use. And what he's claiming is that Congress gave the Department of Education the authority to give him the authority to forgive loans, which is just absolutely absurd.
Now, if there is no legal basis for this, do you expect any kind of legal challenge to this decision by the White House? This effort?
I do. I think it's going to be brought forth by, taxpayer organizations out there because regardless of what the president says, the American taxpayers are going to have to pay for it. He has spent over $4 trillion now trying to buy votes to save as many Democrat seats as he can this fall, knowing that once we take back the House in January, his agenda is over for him as president for the next 2 years, regardless of what happens in the Senate. You won't see these kind of bills that destroy American ideology, take money out of the American people's pockets and bring it to Washington, D.C., as you've seen this president do since he's been in office, some 19 months. It's insane what's going on. It's all about the socialist agenda of the Democrats trying to destroy our energy companies like mine here in Oklahoma and across America and go beg for oil from the Saudis and from Iranians in Venezuela. And this president he has fallen so far to the extreme left that it's crazy for the American people. It's a sad day in America to see what's happened today.
We're speaking with Oklahoma Congressman Kevin Hern today. And Congressman, one thing that I think Americans do agree about is the fact that higher education is really expensive, probably inappropriately expensive. Do you think this conversation provides opportunities for perhaps Republicans or even Democrats to propose different solutions to the problem of inflated costs in higher ed?
Well, we have to look and see. We've learned a lot under the pandemic about remote learning and that you don't necessarily need a four-year college degree. Our career techs, like the ones here in Oklahoma, have been great at preparing people to go out and go to work as carpenters, as plumbers, and make a lot of money the day they come out of school with little to no debt, and certainly have a high-paying job that they can pay back their debt, just as I did and many, many millions of Americans have done over the years. Well, I never went to college. When I went there, I got student loans. I paid them back. I never expected anybody else to pay my student loans back, and nor did anybody else. And when you hear people like Tim Ryan, who's running for Senate in Ohio, say that this is absurd, we shouldn't be doing this, a Democrat. When you hear Chris Pappas in New Hampshire, a Democrat, saying that this should be paid for, not by the American people, because it's going to add to the debt. You have Democrat after Democrat after Democrat that are back home listening to their constituents saying, this is not the right thing to do. We've got to fix the underlying problem, let people pay their debts, as we always have, be responsible Americans, go out and get a job and pay back your debts. And to think that Washington, D.C. is going to be the savior for everything that goes on in America is exactly what our founders warned us against.
And Congressman, do you have any concern that if this sticks, that this kind of becomes a new expectation and that people would start looking to the federal government to take care of other consumer debts?
Well, sure. And, the thing about it is that student debts are immune from bankruptcy. That could be one thing you could do, is say that, I guarantee you that you'd get a lot of people's attention if you could say that a person can file for bankruptcy and those debts could be forgiven in that manner. You'd have a lot of financial institutions that are giving out student loans say, wait a minute, you've got to be able to pay this back. You'd have universities stop raising their tuitions to meet this forgiveness. We saw this in the EV industry just recently with the Biden administration giving up to $7,500 credit to go buy an EV. And what happened is the electric vehicle manufacturers just raised their price to meet that number. So nothing has been gained by that, other than we're taking taxpayer dollars and giving to these industries to build electric vehicles. This is the same thing that's happening. There's no incentive for higher ed to look at their cost structure, because they know that students can go out and get loans. And if they don't like going to school and their dropout rates after sophomore year or junior year, or even after the freshman year, that there's no harm, no foul. The federal government will just bail them out. And this has got to stop. We're at $31 trillion in debt. The American taxpayers are paying for this by money being borrowed from China. And we can't keep having our dependency on somebody like China who wants to destroy us.
Well, Congressman, for what it's worth, from my view in the cheap seats, I do hope that this creates a new and invigorated conversation about reforms that can come to higher education. But I do think it's a broken system. I think a lot of Americans think so. I think there's an appetite for change. And I hope if anything good can come out of this conversation, it's that we might be able to get some real reforms. But before I lose you, I want your insights on how you think this conversation is going to affect the landscape in November. Will it succeed in buying votes for the White House?
Well, I don't think so. I think American people, when I talk to folks, regardless of party, they're concerned about nearing double-digit inflation. They're concerned about what's happening at the southern border. When they see almost 3 million people across the border since this president's come into office, more people have died crossing the border than any other president. And what does he do? He just refuses to go there. He put Kamala Harris in charge. She refuses to go there. Secretary Mayorkas says he's doing a great job. This administration is in an echo chamber telling themselves that they're doing a fantastic job, and the American people are saying something else. Everybody loves to get free money, except you have to pay for it. And the reality is that we have to be responsible Americans, as we always have been. And you're going to see that under the Republican control. We're going to put more money back in your pocket because I believe, regardless of what party you're in, you're going to make better decisions with your money than Washington, D.C. is going to make. And so, as we put money and policies and the opportunity for you to make decisions more so in your pocket back home in your states and your communities and less dependency on Washington, D.C., you're going to have a freer and better life.
And Congressman, perhaps the final question here. We are all kind of waiting here in Washington, D.C. to find out if and when the affidavit connected to the search of President Trump's house is going to be released. Do you have any insight as to when we might see that? And if we do, what we're going to see?
Well, clearly, this is an unprecedented move to invade, to raid a former president's home. We know what's happened under Hillary Clinton and President Obama and others, regardless of what the the left wing people want to say about the right wing folks out here, is that somehow we don't know what we're talking about. All we have to go back and do is look at the news of the day back under President Obama, when President Trump was pointing this out about Hillary Clinton during the race that they had, that the real problem is here, there's a double standard. We couldn't get the FBI to do anything. And now here we have a president that's a former president who's going to be the next president, should he decide to run. And they're out invading his home, trying to do everything they can to prevent him from running again. And, we're going to see the judge tomorrow look at a redacted document, the affidavit, and make a determination where they've redacted so much, marked out so much of it that it makes no sense. And hopefully we can get to the bottom of this. Mayorkas spoke for about 3 minutes on this issue last week after, a couple of weeks since it happened. I think you're seeing outrage across America. You're having even Democrats saying this is unprecedented when they get away from the microphone. So I hope tomorrow that we see what's behind this whole issue and the American people can make their determination at that point in time. But again, it's insane. I can tell you this, when we take back the House in January, because the Democrats are not going to do it before then, we're going to bring the DOJ in. We're going to bring the people that are part of this in to ask the questions that the Democrats are not asking now.
Congressman
I think
Hern?
the American people deserve to know, and we're going to find out what the answers are.
Congressman Kevin Hern, thanks for stopping by today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Joseph.